Hello everybody, here's another file that was sent to me by Rick Dupler. This is Rich's website we're looking at right now. I'll scroll down just to show you a few more of some images and things that he has posted. So we're going to work on a couple of his images, sort of. He sent me two images, the two images you see on the screen. And just to kind of give you, since I have two images, to give you a little bit of an idea of how Adobe Bridge allows you to renumber things. You can highlight what you have, and then you just come up here to the top to Tools, Batch, Rename, and we can name it Rich, and we're gonna call it starting sequence number 1. But I'm putting in a little dash between there. So right here, if you notice right here, it shows you what the file name is going to look like, Rich-01, and then you click rename, and see now it's renamed them to Rich-0102. So it's just that fast and that easy. Another reason why I use Bridge over Lightroom, because of the speed at which things can happen. But anyway, let's open up this first image. And again, this is just raw image straight off the camera, very pretty girl that he sent. And so the first thing I always do is I set my preset. This is the default. This is reset. So that changes things a little bit, lightens up her hair and various other things. But what we'll do next is, let's see, just kind of tweak it a little bit. I noticed that, maybe the highlights got a little too much. And in her hair, it got a little too light, I think, for me. So like there, that's about it. Now here's another little cool secret, a little trick, if you will. I'm going to show you how that happens in Photoshop. If you have, notice in his image, you have white sky. Now that's probably because it was an overcast day. I don't see any hard shadows anywhere. But everything looks better with a blue sky. And so one of the first things that you can do is you can, in Color Mixer, you can take out the blue. Undesaturate, desaturate the blue, and then in the luminance, increase the luminance of the blue. And what that'll do is, if there is any remnants of blue whatsoever in this sky, it takes it out. And you'll find out here in a second why that comes in handy. All right, so after you do that to the image, you click Done, all right? And then what I typically do is I then go over to the next image and start working it. Now this one I've already kind of tweaked a little bit. One thing I'll point out to Rich is that this image, if you zoom in, is kind of blurry. I notice it looked like you missed the focus. In fact, if you go before and after on the work that I actually did, you can tell it's really blurry out the camera. But inside of Adobe Camera Raw, there is, under detail, you can crank up the sharpening. So that's one of the first things I wanted to show you on this image that I did. Now what we'll do is we'll prep both of these images. So what you do is you highlight them both, and you go Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor, okay? And the image processor opens up. Now I want, well, step 1, 2, 3. 1, 2 images from Bridge. 2, save in the same location. 3, I want to go JPEG, quality 12. I do not want to resize it, sRGB, and I want to run my action, my standard workflow, portraiture first run action, which adds just a little bit of softening to the image. So now portraiture and Photoshop is running in the background. Now the cool thing about this is I could at this point go back into Bridge and I could work something else. So see, I could come over here and here's an image that someone else sent me. See, I could start in Adobe Camera Raw tweaking this image while Photoshop is working or prepping those files for me. So again, it's kind of a time-saving trick to be able to do things that way and have a Bridge processing things for you in the background while you're working other things and getting them ready. Okay, so now we have the two images, and so I'm gonna go to the second one first, just to show you, just to adjust this softness. You see, again, we get in here and look, you can tell it's really kind of blurry. What I do is I do, first of all, a little bit of unsharpened mask. So instead of running my action, I'm going to show you, I go over to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharpened Mask. Okay, and I typically go too much. So I'm going to crank up the amount, take the radius, down, I don't know. Let's see. That's a little too much. Take the radius to there, bring up the threshold just a little bit. Okay, so I've done too much. Then I hit Shift Command F, which allows me to fade it back. So I can fade it back to where I started, or I can just do different degrees all the way along. And so in this case, I'm gonna stop somewhere right here about 65%. Then I'll run Filter, Imagenomics, Noiseware, which is a really nice Noiseware reduction filter. And I just leave it at default. Run it, and then I will run Unsharpen Mask again. So I will go Filter, Sharpen, except I have an action that does this for me instead of doing it this slow way. Run the Unsharpen Mask again. This time I'm going to reduce the amount of sharpness. Okay, and then I'm going to fade it again. Shift Command F, and then I'm going to fade that back, and then I'm going to stop somewhere in between, somewhere right about here. Okay, now at this point you may look at it and say, well, it didn't really do that much, did it? Well, watch. I'm going to totally undo it and totally redo it. And you can tell it has gained some sharpness. Now again, we're looking at this thing at 109.78%. So undo, redo. Let's look at it on the full screen where we undo and redo, and you can see that it does a nice job. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that off, go back to the image that I want to work on, which is this one. So the first thing we're going to do is I told you about how you can add blue into this area. Again, I wrote this into an action so that I don't have to go through step by step by step. I just press one button and it does a sequence of things to the image. Like, for example, it goes grab an image, it turns it into a layer, it grabs an image, it throws another image underneath it. You can tell over here in my layers palette that there's something underneath the image that appears to be blue. It then opens up this color sampler, allowing me to select color range. And so what I'll do is at this point click to select these areas here. I'll click the plus and I'll click in these areas, and then I'll reduce the fuzziness just a little bit so that it really selects that. Click OK. Now, of course, notice it selected some of her dress, and so all you have to do is paint with white. And again, my action does that. It stops on that tool, so I don't have to go and find and click. So that the only thing really being selected now, if you notice, is the sky. So I'll click this quick mask thing down here to show you what's being selected. And in this particular case, I can tell that it wouldn't hurt to add just a tiny bit more. So I'll go select, modify, expand, and I'll tell it that I want to expand by 2 pixels. Okay, so it's now expanded that selection by 2 pixels. And then you hit Shift Command I, which reverses the selection. Then all you do is click right here at the bottom to do a layer mask, and boom, the sky comes in. Now, the size image you're using is different than the size image I typically use. So I'm just going to raise it up somewhere about here to where I have some nice clouds. And so if you notice, that's a pretty realistic look to the clouds. If at this point you think, it could be better, okay, then what you're going to do is delete the mask, but apply it so that it still shows through. Have that first layer, and then go to select, let me see, always layer matting right here. Under layer matting, defringe. And by how many pixels? I'm going to say a 15 pixel defringe. And so that cleans up those little edges a little bit. Now, of course, you could manually go in and do that so as to create a nice blue sky. So we're going to flatten that for now. But now let's work on the subject. And I know from the email that Rich sent me, one of the things he says he has problems with is these wispy hairs. So the best way to do that is get in close, okay? Use your healing brush, and I have found that hair tends to be a multiple step process. And I tell this to people who watch me do Photoshop. Just because I move on does not mean I'm done, okay? So I'm just working with one tool at a time. So I'll hit Option, select something about in here, and I'll just start rubbing off these wispies, okay? So this is step 1. rubbing off the wispies. And I keep selecting in different areas. And again, you may look right here and say, well, that don't look real. No, it doesn't, because I'm not done yet. Okay? So we're just going to go ahead and keep wiping these areas down, just getting the real flyaways to really calm down. We're going to calm this flyaway down. Now, some of these flyaways, let me just tell you, like in here, I wouldn't mess with that, because you know what? It's real. It's got to have, you got to have some flyaways, or else it just doesn't look real, okay? It just does not look real. So we're going to go ahead and manage these flyaways, keep managing them. Manage. All right, so good. Again, you look right here and you may say, oh, that don't look too good, Kirk. I agree. It does not look finished yet. Okay, so this is just step one. See all these flyaways down here? Again, that's real. That's natural. So we're not going to mess with that. Coming into here, I don't like this guy. I don't like this. I really don't like this. And we're just selecting, just kind of doing it pretty fast. Okay, we're going to calm this big long one down. All right, just like that. We're going to calm this big long one down. All right, and these don't bother me so much. Let's back up and look at this whole thing. All right, if you look at it far, it's not bad. But you know what? Customer's going to zoom in on that. They're not going to like it. So the step two is you go over to your cloning tool and you use somewhere around in the 30% range, 40% range, 35. Okay, and you use a brush about that big, and you select nearby, and you just kind of rub. And you notice what that does, because you're only cloning at 30%, is you're taking the edge off. Taking the edge off of this hair. Right in there. So some of these ones that are kind of pokey-outy like this, it's no big deal, because you're taking the edge off, and it makes it a lot more fun to look at this, because it just kind of calms it down a little bit. Let's come over to this side. Like, this is a good example of what I'm talking about. You're not going to get rid of it. You're just going to not make it so obvious, okay? Same thing in here. We're going to calm all that, and there's fixing that. See how that cleaned up that little bit of wispiness that we had before. And in here. Now, one of the last things I like to do is not go all the way out, but look for, sometimes in the course of all that cloning, you get some stuff that just doesn't look natural. And it's like, you know what? I'm liking that. Now that I'm a little backed off, I'm starting to not like that wispy hair. So you know what? I don't like it. Let's change it. Let's go back to where we started. Back to that healing brush. I'm going to take those down. Right in here. Where it isn't so obvious. And now we're going to go back to our little clone at 30%. Make it not so obvious. Let's look at the whole image. Much better, okay? The last step, that was so basically a two-step process. You can go into Liquify, which is Shift-Command-X, zoom into this hair area, and you can use this from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down, which is the push left tool. And so the secret is to make your pressure low, like 10%, and everywhere that you go left with the brush, it pushes down, or what, it depends which way you're going. Okay, when you push from right to left, it goes down. When you go from left to right, it goes up. So you'll get the hang of it to where you don't even think about that anymore. And you can go in and push some of these wispies that bother you in. Okay, you can just move it around and push them in. But again, you don't want to do that too much, because it can get real strange real fast. Now, I don't know a single person, now since I'm already in Liquify, I don't know a single young person who doesn't want to look skinnier than they already are. They look great, but you know what? They want to look even skinnier. So, while you're in Liquify, you can come over to jawline, move that in just a little bit, face width, move that in just a little bit, and it creates a very natural effect. Okay, now, let's go look for any more of these little wispies. Like I got one coming right here in the face. Look at that. So to get rid of that, you zoom in tight, use a little brush, healing tool, just brush right on the side of it. Just like that. Okay. Touch in here. Okay. Pretty girl. Doesn't really have any zits, but looks like she was getting a little sweaty that day. Okay. So let's calm some of that down. You just kind of take, what's that? Let me get rid of it. Take those those bumps from sweat, and you just use the healing brush to clone that, or I hate to use the clone because it adjusts the texture. Watch this one. It's going to keep that sheen, that highlightness of it, but it's going to get rid of that weird texture, which is what happens when you sweat. It creates that reflection texture. All right, so just like that. I'm starting to like that a lot. Soften underneath these eyeballs. Everybody loves that. I'd like to know who made the rule that that's not attractive anymore. Huh. Okay, good. All right, so it looks like you're using some sort of auxiliary flash. I've talked about this in other videos, that I don't like the way that flash touches the black part of the eye. So to fix that, you can take a paintbrush, 100%, a little bit bigger than the area I want to adjust. Paint that out. Then I'll use my dodge tool, mid-tones, protect the tones off, about 50, I guess, roughly 50%. And looking at the nose, this is how I do it. I look at the nose. It is lighter here than it is here, so the direction of the light is from left to right. So I want to catch light right about there. Catch light right about there. And then add my little swish that we've talked about in other videos. That does happen naturally, but looks really cool, especially in brown-eyed people. Like that. Hold down your Alt or Option key, which turns it into a burn tool. Burn in that darkness, and looking good. All right, I see a little thing that I did right here that I messed up. We're going to fix that. Looking for anything else. This little wispy right here bothers me. Little bump right there. On the lips, that's natural. Neck, looking good. Okay, let's look at the whole image. Yes, looking nice. Okay, now probably it has something to do with the way, she might have had this kind of pose in mind, not being there. You just don't know so many of these things. But because all of this, her hips and her legs are closer to me, she's kind of leaned back, it can kind of make the hips and stuff look bigger than they should be. Easy to fix. Open up Liquify, Shift Command X. Get you a nice big brush using this forward warp tool, which is the very first one. Pressure low, let's say about 15. Nice big brush, and we can push in. We want to run even with that brick wall because we don't want to distort the brick wall. We can push in those hips, making that a little bit better, a little bit more fun to look at. Fix this little piece of clothes right here. Just like that. Can accentuate her figure just a little bit like that. Okay, click OK. And much better. Okay, let's look at this whole image again. It wouldn't hurt to burn the edges just a tad bit. I'm using mid-tones at 30%. Then I'm going to go back with highlights at the same number. Just to force your eye right into the subject. Make her the lightest part of the image too. That makes it where you jump on the subject. And just because I can, I'm going to even this out a little bit. I notice there's a little less space here than here. And also to kind of get her right there where I want it. Okay, yeah, that's fun. I'm starting to like that. Run my last step, which is my perfect soft action. And what that does is it first of all runs portraiture. And I take the little plus eyedropper and I click on some skin, click OK. And because I did those adjustments in her face and in her skin is really going to smooth up nicely. So I got about 85%. She don't need so much brown because she's nice and tan. So I'm going to tone that down a little bit. Let's see, a little bit of snap. That looks good. In with levels. Just like that. Just like that. Levels, hold down your Alt key. Let you graphically see which pixel's being affected. And just like that, let's look at the whole image. Whoa, right there. Good. Okay. I kind of like it. That worked really good. The image looks good. Finished, ready to go. You could get real particular with taking out some of those wrinkles in her dress if you wanted to. I would say not, because I'm sure this session you have more than just 1 or 2 images to work, so you probably ain't got time for all that. So hopefully this helps you, Rich. Hopefully it helps somebody else. Appreciate you guys sending me some images the way you've done. And y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.